I still remember the first night I took that road, the one everyone warned me about. It was late, maybe 10:08 p.m., and the forest on both sides felt endless. The GPS signal flickered in and out, my phone light catching branches that looked like bent arms reaching over the car. The radio hissed with static, then stopped completely, as if something had cut the frequency clean. The headlights hit the fog just right, and for a moment I could see something hanging from a tree up ahead. A pumpkin. Not just any pumpkin. Its carved mouth curved upward like it was grinning directly at me. Its eyes weren't triangular. They were oval, stretched almost alive. I slowed the car. The forest hummed. And then, from the corner of my eye, I caught it. A reflection in the rearview mirror. Someone was sitting in the back seat. When I turned, the seat was empty. Just the quiet ticking of the engine. I don't know how long I sat there, breathing hard, hand frozen on the gear shift. Then I drove, faster than I should have, tires hissing on wet asphalt, until the wooden sign appeared through the trees. Welcome to Hollow Creek Estates, a silent community. It looked expensive, safe, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens. But I remember what the realtor said on the phone before I bought it. It's beautiful out there. Just avoid being outside after 9. The HOA has strict rules about that. Now that I think about it, maybe she wasn't talking about rules. Before I tell you the rest, I want to know something. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? If it's after dark, maybe turn a light on. Because what happened in Hollow Creek started the same way, with someone alone driving through the woods, thinking nothing bad ever really happens in quiet neighborhoods. If you enjoy stories that sound too real to be made up, you might want to subscribe before we go further. Because this one still follows me when I drive home at night. When I finally pulled into the driveway, everything looked perfect. Wide porch, painted mailbox, a neat manicured lawn under the dim glow of streetlights. My wife, Claire, was waving from the door, wearing that excited smile she'd had since we bought the place. My parents had moved in with us a week earlier. They stood in the hallway behind her, and our little boy, Ryan, ran out barefoot, shouting, "Daddy!" That warmth, that normalcy, erased the fear for a while. Inside, the house smelled new, like fresh paint and pine wood polish. The walls still had that echo you get before furniture settles in. Everything about it felt calm, safe, except for the faint draft coming from the vent near the floor, like someone breathing, slow and steady. Later that night after dinner, I sat on the back porch with my father. The air was cool, wind pushing through the tall trees that surrounded the neighborhood like a wall. He said quietly, "It's too quiet here." I laughed, told him that's what we paid for. He didn't laugh back. Somewhere in the distance, a child giggled. The kind of giggle that sounds sweet for half a second before it doesn't. Then nothing. Just the crickets, loud and uneven. At 11:47 p.m., I woke up to a faint knock. 3 soft taps. Not from the front door. From inside the house, I checked the hallway. Empty. When I passed the mirror by the stairs, my reflection looked wrong. The hallway light flickered, and for a split second, my face didn't move with me. It was still staring ahead, smiling faintly, like it knew something I didn't. The next morning, there was an envelope on our porch. No postage, just the HOA letterhead embossed in gold. Notice of community conduct, welcome to Hollow Creek. For the safety of all residents, outdoor activity after 9 p.m. is strictly prohibited. Violations will result in corrective visitation. At the bottom, instead of a signature, there was a faint orange fingerprint, like someone had pressed a pumpkin's flesh into the paper. Claire thought it was just an odd Halloween gimmick. But when I drove to work that evening, I noticed something strange. Every mailbox on our street had the same small orange fingerprint on its handle. And when I came home that night, right at 9:03 p.m., all the streetlights went out together. Every single one, that's how it began. The road, the pumpkin, the silence after 9. I didn't know then that Hollow Creek wasn't just quiet, it was listening. The next morning should have felt ordinary. Sunlight filtered through the blinds. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, and for a few seconds I could almost pretend nothing was wrong. Claire was laughing softly with my mother about the movers who had scratched one of the dining chairs. But then I looked at the porch window, and the laughter stopped meaning anything. There were more envelopes. 5 this time, all neatly stacked, all stamped with the same orange fingerprint that had been on last night's letter. No names, no handwriting, just the HOA seal and the faint citrus rot scent of pumpkin. I didn't open them right away, but even unopened, I could feel the paper pulsing slightly in my hand, like it was warm. At breakfast, my father unfolded the local paper. The headline on the front page read, "Hollow Creek HOA prepares for annual Halloween silence event." Below it, a photo of the neighborhood I now lived in. Identical lawns, trimmed hedges, and smiling families holding carved pumpkins. Except the family in the photo was ours, same porch, same mailbox. Even the clothes matched what we wore the night we moved in. But the date on the newspaper said the article had been printed 5 years ago. I asked the old man behind the counter at the gas station later that day about the article. He blinked slowly, as if replaying a memory that didn't want to come. "Oh, that photo," he said. "That was the Hollow Creek promo ad. They used to put it in the local papers every Halloween. Always the same family. Nobody knew who they were. When I told him the people looked exactly like us, he just stared and whispered, 'Then maybe the creek picked you this year.' That evening, the HOA had its first welcoming round. A man in a crisp gray suit introduced himself as Mr. Rogers, Community Compliance Officer. His smile was stretched tight, polite, too polite. He handed us a rule book thick enough to be a phone directory. "We pride ourselves on silence and order," he said. "Noise disturbs the creek. Lights after 9 confuse it. We don't want that." When I asked who the creek was, his smile didn't move. He just said, "It's not a who." Then he slipped a small orange sticker onto our front window before leaving. It looked like an eye. That night, the wind returned. Branches tapped against the siding with a rhythm that almost sounded intentional. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 3 again. I went out to check, flashlight trembling in my hand. The air smelled like burnt sugar, the same way pumpkins smell when candles burn too long inside them. Near the edge of the trees, I saw something glinting in the dirt, a camera. Half-buried lens pointed straight at our porch. It had the HOA sticker on its side. When I brought it inside and turned it over, the small digital screen flickered to life, showing a still image. A frame frozen at 9 p.m. exactly. Claire standing on the porch, except her eyes were closed, and her mouth was open like she was screaming silently. Behind her, a shape, tall, thin, blurred, was reaching from the doorway. I dropped the camera. When I looked back at the screen, the photo was gone. The display just showed, "Sync complete." Next morning, Claire said she dreamed of someone knocking on the window all night but couldn't wake up. Ryan, our son, told her he had been talking to the pumpkin boy, who plays in the yard after dark. He said the boy's voice sounded like Daddy but tired. By afternoon, I'd made up my mind. I called the HOA office. A woman answered, her tone so calm it felt rehearsed. I asked if their security team had placed cameras near our property. She replied, "Every home has a safety lens for quality assurance. It activates after 9 p.m. When I asked why, she simply said, "To ensure no one breaks the silence." Then the line clicked. At 9:01 that night, every streetlight blinked off again, not one by one, but simultaneously. Like someone had flipped a single switch. From our upstairs window, I saw small orange dots glowing on each house, pumpkin lights perfectly aligned on every porch. Then they blinked once, all together, and stayed lit. Claire whispered, "Did you light ours?" I shook my head. When I opened the front door, a pumpkin sat neatly on the step. Carved face, triangle eyes, except inside wasn't a candle. It was a small camera lens. And on the underside of the lid, carved into the flesh, were 5 words. "Do not break the rules." That was the first night I realized Hollow Creek wasn't being managed by the HOA. It was the HOA, and it was alive. The next few days blurred into an uneasy routine. No one went out after 9. The grandparents started whispering prayers before sunset. Claire taped black paper over the windows. But the sounds kept coming. The soft humming from the vents, the chairs shifting on their own. The faint voices under the floorboard saying our names one syllable too slow. Ryan stopped talking about the pumpkin boy. He started drawing him instead. A tall orange figure with long black fingers and no feet. When I asked who it was, he said the neighborhood manager. He says we didn't smile enough for the photo. That photo in the paper. On Halloween Eve, a final notice arrived. Printed in bold black letters. Mandatory participation. Community silence parade. All residents must display their pumpkins and remain outside for the duration of the event. Below it, a signature in orange ink, a name I could barely read. R. Rogers. Silence coordinator. When the sun set that evening, I could feel the air change, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Pumpkins lit up on every porch in perfect unison. Every door opened at the same time, and from each house, people stepped out. Neighbors I had never seen in daylight. Faces expressionless, eyes glassy in the flicker of orange light. They stood in rows along the street, hands at their sides, silent. Claire grabbed my arm. "Let's just stay inside," she whispered. But when I looked back at her, she wasn't at the window anymore. She was already outside, standing with them, pumpkin light on her face, eyes closed. The door swung open by itself, and a voice from the dark yard whispered, "Compliance complete." That was Halloween Eve in Hollow Creek, the last night I ever slept in that house when I woke up. The pumpkins were gone, the street was clean, and every neighbor's porch was empty except for ours, where 5 fresh orange prints were smeared across the door, as if someone had pressed their hands there to say goodbye, or to make sure we never left. Morning sharpened everything. The sky was clean, the street was neat, the hedges lined up with the confidence of rulers. Whatever had stood on our porch the night before left no footprints, just a faint scent of extinguished candle, the kind that clings to air the way a thought clings to a room. 5 new envelopes waited on the mat like obedient pets. The orange fingerprints were darker today, pressed harder into the paper as if whoever stamped them had leaned their weight. I didn't open them in the doorway. I carried them to the kitchen table and laid them out in a row. Claire hovered beside me, one hand on my shoulder, the other absently turning her wedding band. My father sat across from us with his elbows on the wood like he was bracing for weather. My mother set a mug of coffee in front of me and said a small prayer under her breath that ended with the word light. I slit the first envelope with the butter knife. The paper inside was heavy, textured, the kind that likes to be kept. Courtesy reminder, quiet hours. Welcome to Hollow Creek. To preserve community well-being, please observe outdoor quiet hours after 9 p.m. Note, during quiet hours, do not open exterior doors, adjust porch lighting, or obstruct your corridor. Thank you for your cooperation. Compliance Committee. The second, notice corridor clearance. For the safety of residents and timely response in the event of an emergency. Interior corridors must remain unobstructed after 9 p.m. Please ensure hallway rugs remain flat. Interior doors remain unlocked. Mirrors remain unobstructed, Moy. Failure to comply may result in a corrective visit. Claire read that twice. Unlocked? She said softly. The third letter was a photo. Our hallway from above, the runner slightly crooked. The thermostat's faint red eye on. A timestamp set in the corner, 9:20 p.m. sharp last night. The angle wasn't from a doorbell or a phone. It was from near the ceiling. We didn't have a camera there. I opened the fourth. A small orange sticker fell onto the table. Perfect circle, faintly translucent, like the skin of a pumpkin cut thin. In the center, a number 42. On the backing, display near entry. The fifth was short, written as if to a child. Welcome walk. Tonight, 8:30 p.m. Please remain on your porch. Lights will be adjusted for uniformity. A representative may wave. You may wave back, adjusted. My father repeated as if trying the word on his tongue. Like a tie. I stuffed everything back into the envelopes and looked past the sink to the backyard. The line of trees stood still, but the stillness felt performed. Something about the distance between trunks looked wrong, as if the spacing had been measured for a camera. Not grown. Maybe this is all their Halloween theater, Claire said. And I loved her for offering the least frightening explanation available. Then why the corridor? I asked. Why my hallway on their letterhead? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Somewhere in the vents, the air system sighed the way a person sighs when you don't take advice. By noon, I decided we'd be boring and normal. We'd stack moving boxes, hang the mirror, push the couch back, make soup. I texted the contractor about a handrail we wanted. I logged into the back end for my business and answered 3 client emails about estimates. Twice ignoring an error that said connection unstable. Try again after 9 p.m. The phrase lodged behind my eyes. After 9. I clicked send anyway. The messages vanished into Outbox and then decided to stay there. At 2, I drove to the HOA office because pretending doesn't change paper. The building sat near the entrance of the development. Beige and efficient. Flag at the right height. Windows filmed with the kind of tint that can't make up its mind about being a mirror. Inside, a receptionist in a cardigan with tiny pumpkins on it smiled like she'd practiced in a training module. "Hi," I said. "We got these." I set the letters down and kept my hand on them in case they tried to learn new words. "Wonderful," she said, and slid a pen across the counter with 2 fingers. "Welcome to Hollow Creek. May I have your lot number?" 42, I said. Her eyes flicked to the sticker. "Perfect," she said, making the word sound like a diagnosis. She typed, nodded at the screen as if it had told a joke, and printed a laminated card. Lot 42, silence event participant. "What is a corrective visit?" I asked. "Your letters keep hinting at it." She didn't blink. "It's a friendly reminder to maintain quiet," she said. "Sometimes people forget and open doors. Sometimes they leave things in the corridor. What happens if we forget?" I asked. She smiled with the endless patience of a teacher paid by the hour. "Families tend to remember," she said. "We're very proud of that." Behind her on the wall hung a grid of framed photos labeled Community Through the Years, rows of happy Halloween porches under soft light. Pumpkins aligned to regulation. In the 3rd row, 3rd frame, a family of 5 smiled at me from a porch that looked like ours. The father's jaw was too much like mine. The boy's hair was Ryan's. The plaque under the frame read 2018, Excellence in Participation. I walked closer until my breath fogged the glass. "Can I get a copy of that?" I asked. She moved her head as if a fly had bothered her. "We don't release archives," she said. "Then who are they?" I asked. "Neighbors," she said. "Happy ones." On the way out, a corkboard by the door caught my eye. Community notices, craft clubs, a flyer for pumpkin carve-a-thon that had been pinned so many times the corners were lace. At the bottom, a narrow strip of paper. After 9 p.m., don't. No verb. Just that. I drove home by the long way in daylight to prove to myself that the road could behave. At the bend where branches knit over the asphalt, a new sign stood like it had always been there. Slow decoration prep ahead. The paint was clean, the stake unweathered. 50 yards beyond, hanging from a low branch, a pumpkin swung slightly in no wind. The face carved into it wasn't the cheerful triangles I grew up with. It was a stretched half smile, one side pitched higher, the way a smile looks when it isn't for the person you think it's for. I braked. The radio stuttered to static and then admitted a song existed. In the rear view, the back seat was empty except for the bag of zip ties I'd meant to bring inside last week. I told myself the pumpkin was a prank, and then reminded myself I didn't know who in this neighborhood understood that word. The afternoon tried very hard to be ordinary. Ryan built a fort with throw blankets and invited my father in. My mother arranged silverware in a drawer with a satisfaction I needed to watch. Claire labeled 3 boxes winter in her neat print and stuck orange stickers on the sides, because they were the only ones in the drawer. At 8:30, the welcome walk started on its own. No knock, no announcement. Porch lights bloomed on up and down the street like polite applause. I stepped out with the envelope in my hand and felt stupid for doing exactly what a letter told me to do. Across the asphalt, neighbors stood in pairs at exact distances, not speaking, their faces gentled by orange light. Somewhere a speaker whispered, "Thank you for participating," in the same voice that tells you your package arrived. A shape moved at the end of the block, a golf cart with a small flag. The driver lifted a hand in a formal little wave without looking at us. I lifted mine because it felt safer than not. At 8:41, The golf cart paused in front of our house. The driver wore a soft gray jacket and a cap, and I couldn't see his face because of the angle, or because angles are choices here. He put a sticker on the lamppost, small orange 42, and tapped the post gently with a pen. The sound carried down the block, a polite click, the kind that says you've signed. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. He drove on. At 8:59, the soundscape changed. Not louder, emptier, as if someone had vacuumed out frequencies we live on. The streetlights clicked off in unison. Every pumpkin eye brightened a fraction to make up for it. At 9:02, my phone, which I wasn't using, vibrated. A calendar entry I hadn't made popped up. Quiet hours, all. The description field read, "Leave corridor unobstructed. Remain indoors." The alert tone was a soft chime that made my back teeth ache. At 9:01, the front door pressed gently against my hand, as if it wanted me to choose. I closed it, set the chain, and leaned my forehead against the wood until it cooled my skin. The house listened to my breathing and adjusted its own. We moved into the corridor because the corridor had been invited into our day. I straightened the runner without meaning to. Claire lifted the frame and made it level, and then tilted it back because too much neatness felt like agreeing. My father stood at the end of the hall with his hands in his pockets like a man visiting a hospital. My mother sat on the bottom stair and said another prayer that ended this time with the word doors. The thermostat's red pilot light blinked twice and then settled into a slow pulse like a sleeping animal. Through the return vent, I heard something that wasn't the blower motor. It was a soft consonant sound, 3 taps and a pause. Knock, knock, knock. The same rhythm as branches on siding last night. "Don't," Claire said, not to me, to the air. "I'm going to be boring," I said. "I'm going to read the rulebook." Boredom felt like a tool. I took the thick binder the HOA man had given me and opened it to the table of contents. Quiet enjoyment policy, corridor guidance, seasonal participation, enforcement, no page numbers, no sections separated by tabs. The paper had that coated finish that makes fingers squeak if they're dry. The corridor guidance page was short. A corridor is where we pass safely. Keep it clear. Don't trap your own family. Under it, a diagram of a hallway looked almost like ours. 4 doors, a framed picture, a small console table. A red X covered the table. The caption read, "Remove." Claire's eyes met mine. "They can't tell us where to put a table," she said. Her voice had a tremor that wasn't fear. It was an old anger. "We paid for walls. We'll move it back in the morning," I said. We slid the little table into the guest room and closed the door. The sound the door made as it latched was too loud in the quiet the neighborhood had purchased. Ryan woke when it clicked and padded into the hall in dinosaur pajamas, hair sleep wild. "Buddy," I said softly, "back to bed." He didn't look at me. He stared down the hall at the thermostat light and said, "They're counting. Who is?" He thought hard, as if the answer were on a cue card he'd misplaced. "The pumpkins," he said, finally satisfied. "Close your eyes," my mother said gently. She walked him back to bed humming a song from when I was small, the notes thin but sturdy. At 9:17, something new happened. The house phone, which we kept in the kitchen because it felt practical to have one thing that wasn't an app, rang. A real ring, the kind you hear in movies set in other decades. I lifted the receiver. The line breathed. "Hello?" I said. My own voice answered. Mine, but thinner, like I'd been up all night. "Please remain indoors during quiet hours." The line clicked. The dial tone returned like it had been there the whole time and was embarrassed it had to work. I set the phone down slowly. The sticker on the window looked more like an eye every minute. "I'm going outside," I said. "No," Claire said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Please." "I'll step onto the porch," I said. Just that. If this is theater, someone needs to see the audience. I unhooked the chain with both hands because I didn't trust my fingers to be kind. I opened the door and stepped onto the mat. The air had that sugar burn scent again. The pumpkins up and down the street flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere near the mailboxes, a small motor hummed, like a golf cart downshifting. I took one full breath and another, and then the porch light brightened on its own, bleaching the wood to paper. The orange sticker on the window warmed under it, and for a second, I thought I saw the number change inside the circle. 42 to 43 to 42 again. Like a blink, across the street, a window shade lifted 2 inches and lowered, a neighbor's eye that didn't want to be caught working overtime. The golf cart idled at the corner. The driver didn't look at me, but I felt looked at anyway. The way you feel a camera lens even if it has the manners not to shine. I went back inside because bravery isn't always the good tool. The chain slid into place with a small, happy click. The house relaxed half a degree, the way muscles do when someone decides not to run. We slept badly. That is, we performed sleep while our bones held a meeting. I woke at 1:11 to a faint plasticky sound and realized it was the little orange sticker on the window peeling up at one edge and pressing down again, like breath. In the hallway, the red pilot light pulsed even slower. On the kitchen counter, the 5 envelopes I hadn't thrown away shifted in the stack by a millimeter, as if the paper inside them were settling. Morning was honest. I like mornings for that. Coffee steamed. The trees pretended nothing had stood under them. The HOA truck, white, logo small, font that wants to be your friend, rolled past slowly and paused at each mailbox. Not to deliver, to check. When it reached ours, the brake lights made a soft red blanket on our hedges. The truck didn't move for a full minute. Then it did. I tried to do my real job. I made 2 calls from the dining room and hit a wall that was not a wall. Outbound restricted during quiet enforcement. It was 10:23 a.m. I read the message 3 times because reading makes things obey. It didn't change. The back end for my business cracked open and then closed like a yawn. The status bar at the top of the page added a tiny orange dot I hadn't seen before. Participant. I closed the laptop and walked around the table twice like that could outrun a word. At noon, a violation notice arrived, orange paper, handwriting printed to look friendly. We noticed a corridor obstruction at 9:00 p.m. Please remove all tables, bins and chairs from your hallway after dark. Corrective visits scheduled. Tonight, no action needed. No action needed, Claire repeated, and smiled in that way people smile when they decide not to cry. My father took the letter from me and folded it along the lines, precise, like folding a flag. We'll put a chair there, he said. Let them correct furniture. Dad, I said. The letter. I pointed to the line, no chairs, I know, he said, and set the dining chair in the hallway with both hands, centering it on the runner like he was setting an altar. Sometimes you tell a place what you are. At 8:50, I moved it back because standing on a principle in front of a system that likes corridors felt like offering it a demonstration. My father accepted it with a little nod. Agreement dressed as surrender. We turned off lights we didn't mean to. We checked the lock without locking it because now I understood the rule. They want interior doors open. They want you passable. At 8:58, I taped a small square of paper over the thermostat with the word "No" written in black marker. It felt theatrical. I did it anyway. Claire didn't stop me. She put her hand flat on the bedroom door and kept it there. My mother sat on the bottom step again. Ryan slept, that slack necessary sleep kids get when the grown-ups work too hard at pretending. At 9 the phone vibrated. Quiet hours all again. The porch light breathed and then held. The pumpkins brightened. The air accepted it. At 9:03, the corridor camera, the one we don't own, the one from the HOA photo, found the angle it likes. My phone, face down on the console table we'd moved back after breakfast because I am not a hero, slid a fraction on its case as if a hand had nudged it with a clipboard. At 9:06, a light at the very edge of the trees blinked once. Not the color of a car, not the color of a house. A traffic light in miniature, a code I hadn't learned. At 9:10, the house phone rang once and stopped. Caller ID said unknown, $9. At 9:12, the knock came. 3 soft taps, a pause. Not door, not glass. Somewhere like the place you keep a word you haven't used yet. I walked to the hall and stood where the runner's pattern made a faint circle, if you stared long enough. The thermostat paper square moved slightly with a breath that wasn't mine. Don't open it, Claire said. Whatever it is, don't. I didn't. The chain remained under my hand like an animal that trusts. At 9:15, the porch camera, ours, sent an alert. Person detected. The snapshot it attached showed an empty step and the corner of an envelope. White, undecided. At 9:16, the envelope slid under the door. as if the threshold had been built on a slight slope. I crouched without picking it up and read the 3 words written on the outside in orange pen. Corridor stays clear. At 9:17, the hallway filled with cold the way a church fills with quiet. The mirror by the stairs reflected the lamp in a way that made the room look a half-inch longer. On my phone screen, the corridor feed displayed a small new label in one corner. Corrective visit. In progress. I lifted the envelope. It was hot against my fingers, not from the porch, like it had just been printed. Inside, a single sticker, orange 42, and a slip of paper that read, "If the corridor is blocked, we will use what is available." What does that mean? Claire whispered. Before I could answer, the thermostat's red light went out. The house breathed in. The pumpkins outside brightened another notch. The golf cart engine down the street softened, as if it had been put in neutral. The corridor view on my phone gave up pretending to be an app, and simply lived in the glass. Something moved in the reflection in the mirror. Not a person. An outline cut from the same polite negative space the HOA uses for its brochures. Clipboard-shaped absence, cap-shaped shadow. The kind of presence that would never knock over a vase. It stopped at the bathroom door and waited 3 seconds. The corridor feed stamp checked. It stopped at the guest room where we'd hidden the little table earlier, and the feed stamped adjusted, even though no one opened the door. It reached our bedroom and leaned slightly toward the knob. The feed stamped unlocked, though my hand on the other side of the door felt the cool of the chain and the firm of the bolt. "Don't," Claire said, and the corridor feed stamped reassure in a typeface that wants to be your friend. I put my palm flat on the paper square I'd taped over the thermostat. The heat of whatever looked like electricity on the other side warmed my skin a degree, and then another. The paper curled slowly at the corners like a leaf meeting weather. Under it, words scrolled on the thermostat screen I didn't ask it to have. "Thank you for participating. Correction complete." The corridor feed faded like a polite eye closing. The pumpkins dimmed to their original brightness. The golf cart engine down the block clicked off like a toaster. The house phone emitted one single sympathetic chirp. The envelope in my hand cooled like a human hand letting go. We stood in the hall and didn't move for a long time, because moving meant participating in the audit they had just completed in our house without moving anything visible. "What did they correct?" Claire said finally. I looked down the hall at the bedroom doors. I looked at the rug that remained straight. I looked at the mirror that had learned our faces already. I listened to the vents. I said the only honest thing I had. Us. We slept in shifts. At 3:07 a.m., the radio downstairs turned itself onto a station that plays nothing but soft talking, the kind that keeps truckers awake. A voice we didn't know recited a list of last names and lot numbers, and the words all set. At dawn, Ryan padded into our room holding his drawing. The tall orange figure he'd been sketching all week now had a small detail I hadn't seen before. A little round sticker on its chest. "Do?" He pointed at it and said, "He's wearing our number so he doesn't get lost." "What's his job?" I asked because sometimes kids' answers tell you what adults won't. "He helps people sleep," he said simply. "But he doesn't like doors. I made pancakes I watched no one eat." My father drank coffee like it was medicine. My mother carried the envelope upstairs and tucked it into a drawer, because tucking is what you do when you were taught to fold things that scare you. At 10, I tried to make 3 more business calls. 2 clients sent me responses from the night before. Delivery failed. One wrote, "Is 9 p.m. too late to talk?" I typed yes and then deleted it because rules travel through wires. At noon, I drove back to the HOA office because pretending and waiting had fused into the same activity. And I needed a new verb. The receptionist's cardigan today had tiny black cats on it. She smiled with the precision of a screensaver. "How do I opt out of quiet hours?" I asked. "Pardon?" she said brightly. "Which is how some people say no." "My corridor doesn't belong to you," I said, and placed the envelope on the counter, open. The orange sticker faced up like a coin on a palm. "This letter came under my door." "Who delivered it?" "Community," she said. "Which community?" "All of us," she said, and her smile weakened the smallest degree, the way a light bulb does when the fridge kicks in. Behind her, the grid of community through the years photos caught sunlight through the front windows. The glass flared a little. In the 2018 frame, The father's jaw looked more like mine, or I had learned how to see it. The boy's hair was Ryan's even in a year he hadn't existed here. On the counter near the keyboard, her mousepad read, "We've got the hallway." It isn't a joke when a sentence like that exists on a mousepad. "What happens on Halloween?" I asked. "We celebrate silence," she said. "How?" "Together," she said. "Who are the people in the 2018 photo?" I asked. "Neighbors," she said again. "Happy ones." I left because the next sentence I wanted to say would not have changed anything and would have emptied something I needed later. On the walk to the car, a contractor's van idled with the back doors open. Inside, tidy stacks of plastic pumpkins with cameras tucked in their hollow faces reflected thin light. Each box had lot numbers stenciled on the side in orange. Mine sat on top. 42. Someone had written "smile" under the stencil in a hand I recognized as human and tired. I got halfway home before I realized the forest road had learned my timing. At the bend, a new pumpkin hung lower than yesterday. Face turned more toward the asphalt. Its mouth had been carved differently now. Wider, teeth notched thin. A grin stretched to the edge of what a jack-o'-lantern can manage without admitting it's imitating a person. I pulled over and walked to it because fear and curiosity run on the same fuel, and I was out of other gas. Up close, the pumpkin had that warm, wet smell of something rotting politely. A small orange sticker had been pressed into the rind just below the grin. "Welcome back." I touched it. The flesh gave a little, like a cheek. "Don't," I told myself out loud. And the sound of my own voice in trees made the hair on my arms lift. The drive back felt longer. Every mailbox was perfect. Every sticker was straight. Every porch possessed one ceramic planter that matched all the others. Because, of course, that was in the rules. When I pulled into our driveway, a white envelope lay on the step with no print, no stamp. Inside, a small card. "Tonight, silence practice, no time." The pumpkins decide that. I cooked dinner at 4:30 like I was 80. At 6, we turned on lamps in rooms we weren't in because light felt like a thing we were allowed to possess in daylight. At 7, I wrapped the hallway mirror in a towel and leaned it face to the wall. At 7:03, the thermostat blinked and printed a tiny line of scrolling text I had to squint to read. "Mirror required for safety." I unwrapped the towel and set the mirror back because I had learned this neighborhood was built on small compliance, and we needed to keep which rebellions counted for later. At 8:59, we took our places again like reluctant singers in a choir, where all the music is rests. The streetlights exhaled. The pumpkins inhaled. The corridor camera found us in the right places. At 9:02, the phone vibrated. Quiet hours, all. At 9:02, the house phone rang once. Unknown 981. At 9:05, the vents hummed, and the 3-tap rhythm played the woodwork like an instrument that belongs to the building, not us. At 9:07, something new. My email ping on my laptop in the office. The one sound left that meant another world. I stepped into the doorway and saw an unread message float to the top of my inbox. Sent by Hollow Creek Association, no reply, silence.hc, with the subject, "Thank you." The body contained a single photo of our hallway from 10 seconds ago and a caption, "Correction complete." Under it, tiny, a footnote. "We noticed your effort. Please don't try to alter the practice." I closed the lid because it had started to feel like an eyelid. 9:12, the envelope slid under the door again because the show likes props. I didn't pick it up this time. I stood over it until the air pressure in the hall changed by a fraction, and the paper flattened itself like a dog lying down. Claire's voice came from the bedroom, steady. "If we move in the morning," she said. "Not at night. We don't give them a night?" "Agreed," I said, and the corridor feed stamped confirm. At 9:17, the mirror showed me, the real me, with a detail I hadn't learned to accept yet, my mouth smiling a quarter inch. I hadn't smiled. The reflection had decided that that is how men who agree look. I flattened my face until the muscles hurt, and the reflection caught up. The thermostat printed 2 words and then erased them before they finished. I caught enough. Halloween approaches. It always had. I slept on the hallway floor with my back against the console table, because I had decided it could stay. In the small hours, something in the wall ticked yes and then no, and then yes. I woke to the sound of a wind chime from a house that doesn't own wind chimes. Dawn wrote its name on the edges of things. My father poured coffee with the joyless grace of an altar boy. My mother stood at the front window with the curtain pinched and said, "They put something on the mailbox." We went out together like a unit. A pumpkin sat on top of the lid, smaller than the others, not carved. A sticker circled it like a seal. Hollow Creek participant. Under it, in polite black font, "Please bring this pumpkin to the porch on Halloween." The card beneath it was handwritten in tidy block letters. "Do not open after 9. If opened, the creek will come in." No signature, no need. Back inside, the house smelled faintly like smoke even though nothing had burned. I checked the stove anyway, because it's good to give the world normal causes. The burners were cool. The pilot light blinked at me with the rhythm of this place. We agreed without making it a big scene that we would try to leave that afternoon. Not run, not pack everything. Daylight truth, a highway exit, a coffee shop that doesn't sell rules. Claire rolled clothes into a bag. My mother tucked rosary beads into a side pocket you can feel, but not see. My father wrapped a family photo in a towel and slid it into a box marked kitchen. Because categories are how you keep a self sometimes. At 12:10 p.m., we locked the door because daytime lets you do that. I set the small pumpkin back on the mailbox where the card told me to. We climbed into the car. The engine started like it loved us. We drove out under the gate that had never noticed us before. At the end of the road, the forest opened its mouth. The slow, "Decoration prep ahead" sign was gone, or I couldn't see it in noon. The bend came up and I slowed because you slow for that bend even if you think you don't believe in things. The branches arched. The asphalt ran like a sentence that wants to be shorter. We passed the place where the hanging pumpkin had been. The branch hung empty. A length of orange twine swung a little even though the air was still. At the next intersection, the GPS rerouted with a polite chime and suggested we turn right for community center. I ignored it and stayed on the road that leaves. The GPS chime repeated softer this time, like an apology. Make a U-turn when possible. At the gate to the highway, the arm was down. A maintenance placard hung from it, laminated. A phone number printed on it refused to be dialed. I pulled up, rolled down the window, and pressed the intercom button because the kind of man I am will always give procedure a chance. "Hello?" I said. The speaker breathed once. The same woman's voice from the HOA office said, warm as a blanket, "Happy practice day. Lot 42. Please return after quiet hours. It's noon," I said. "All hours are quiet when the creek is listening," she said. The gate remained politely down. I reversed. I turned onto the side road that runs behind the houses. The one from the map the realtor had shown me when she'd pointed to Greenbelt. Access. A service road gate waited there with a simple chain and a padlock that looked tired. "Bolt cutters," my father said. "In the garage," I said. We drove back to get them. At our driveway, the small pumpkin had split along a seam that hadn't been there. Inside, not seeds. A folded copy of our compliance photo from last night. Me on the hallway floor, eyes open, paper square on the thermostat curling. Under the photo, a typed line. "Doors remain unlocked." That night would be Halloween Eve. "Tomorrow we make noise," Claire said. "Tonight we don't give them what they want." She took the paper square from the thermostat and wrote a new word on it in thicker pen. "Stay." She taped it back and pressed the edges, down hard like stitches. When 9 p.m. came, it came with the ease of routine. Streetlights surrendered. Pumpkin eyes brightened. The corridor camera found our faces and waited the way a cat waits near a door. The envelope didn't slide under the door this time. The notice didn't arrive. The phone did not ring. Silence is also a message. At 9:17, the vent made the smallest sound, a soft shh, the kind you make to a baby when you want them to understand that love can sometimes look like quiet. The mirror showed me not smiling. It smiled anyway. I pressed my heel into the runner where the pattern made a faint circle. The wood didn't give, it held. Good wood. At 10:03, the pumpkins outside dimmed in unison, and then returned to strength, a rehearsal breath. At 11:11, 3 houses down, a porch light came on and stayed on, defiant or obedient. I no longer knew which. At 11:59, a child somewhere laughed with exhausted hiccups and was hushed with a hand over a mouth that meant well. We slept around. 2, we woke to morning like a coin appearing in a hand. Halloween had a sky the color of clean aluminum. Ryan wore his dinosaur pajamas all day and refused to choose a costume, and then pointed at the small sticker on the mailbox pumpkin and said, "That's the costume." My mother made soup. My father walked the perimeter of the backyard and touched every fence post like a man learning a spell. At 4:12 p.m., the HOA truck delivered a larger pumpkin to every porch with a neat thunk that made the step sound hollow for a second. Ours had a tag, to be lit at 8:59 p.m. by the association. Under it, a smaller tag, "Thank you for not opening your door after 9. I didn't plan speeches. I didn't plan heroics. I taped a wind chime we didn't own to the hallway arch with a strip of blue painter's tape, because I wanted one thing that made noise if the air moved wrong. I set a metal mixing bowl on the floor with a wooden spoon because I had read once that sound can be a shape. I put the bolt cutters by the back slider. Claire set the canvas bag near the door with quietly chosen essentials. My father handed me the photograph he'd wrapped in a towel and said, "If we run with faces." My mother kissed the top of Ryan's head and whispered, "When the door knocks, you don't." At 8:58, I stood at the threshold and listened to this place breathe itself ready. The pumpkins brightened a little, then dimmed, then found their setting. The golf cart at the end of the block idled in position, like a period waiting at the end of a sentence. Somewhere beyond the trees, the road coiled like a thought that wants to be undone. At 8:59, an invisible hand turned a dimmer switch that belongs to all of us now. Light shifted. The porch step took on the tone of paper. The orange sticker eye warmed. The corridor camera blinked awake. At 9, the neighborhood counted with its lungs. At 9:01, I heard it, faint from the vent, the old 3-tap rhythm. And under it, something else, like a pencil on a clipboard writing a word we weren't supposed to see. At 9:03, the envelope slid under the door anyway. I picked it up because I needed to know. Inside, a single card. Halloween. Silence parade. Tonight, stand on your porch. Smile, we'll take care of the rest. Under it, handwritten in tiny block letters, "If you try to leave, the creek will walk with you." I placed the card on the console table and put my palm on the word "stay," taped to the thermostat until my skin warmed the paper. "We won't give them our porch," I said. Claire nodded once. "Then we give them nothing." We stood in the hallway as the house made room for a night that belongs to it. The wind chime trembled once with no wind. The mixing bowl waited like a bell. And at 9:17 p.m., as the pumpkins up and down the street brightened in a wave-like breath, something in the mirror behind me turned its head a fraction toward the camera. "We don't," and smiled the way men do in photos. They didn't agree. Not tomorrow we would try to break a gate with a tool meant for fences. Tonight, we learned how long a house can listen without speaking. Halloween crept in like a rule. No drum roll, just a correction to the air. By late afternoon, the street looked staged. Pumpkins centered on every step. Tags tied with the same neat knot. Lawns trimmed until the grass looked ironed. Even the clouds felt compliant, drifting in level strips behind the tree line as if the sky had read the handbook. You could almost say it was beautiful, the way a model home is beautiful. Right before you realize the fruit on the table is plastic. Inside, we made our own kind of opposite. Lamps on in every room, kitchen warm, hallway lit like a small train station. I taped the cheap wind chime to the arch again so it would tattle if the air moved wrong. The mixing bowl sat on the runner with the wooden spoon across its rim like a sleeping instrument. The bolt cutters leaned by the back slider, jaws parted, ready to make one honest sound. My father did his fence line walk, fingertips brushing each post, lips moving like he was counting blessings or exits. My mother pinned the violation notice to the corkboard and smoothed the corners like it might behave better if it lay flat. Claire kept a palm on the bedroom door, not to hold something in, but to promise it we wouldn't open it for anyone who didn't knock with a real hand. At 8:42, an HOA golf cart drifted past as if it had been pushed by the evening itself. The driver wore the soft gray uniform and a cap that could be kindness or shade. He didn't look at our windows. He stopped at the end of the block and idled. A second cart arrived and took its place behind the first. Then a third. They settled at exact intervals. Red taillights low and patient, Like punctuation at the end of a sentence the block knew by heart. I cracked the door to sniff the weather and got paper instead. The pumpkins gave off that warm, sweet smell you get when a candle's been burning too long in hollow flesh. The porch light hummed with a frequency that made my teeth feel like tuning forks. Ryan padded out in his dinosaur pajamas, clutching the small mirror he'd adopted like a badge. He turned the mirror toward the hallway lamp and walked a slow circle in the glow, careful to step around the faint woven ring in the runner pattern. The one he insists is a puddle no one else can see. Can we carve ours? He asked, nodding toward the fat pumpkin on the step. Not tonight, I said. Tonight we don't open anything. He nodded like that was a rule the world should have told him sooner. He pressed the mirror flat against his chest again. His breath fogged the glass for a blink, then cleared. At 8:50, the block took its first breath together. Porch lights brightened, dimmed, brightened, then held. A rehearsal cough. Somewhere beyond the trees, a small engine coughed twice and found its note. The golf carts eased forward one house length and stopped as if they couldn't help but keep time. At 8:58, someone clapped once from somewhere. A soft, single beat that traveled like a promise. The sound wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was just the cue. At 8:59, Hollow Creek lit itself. Every porch light lifted into a warmer tone. Every jack-o'-lantern flared. Not lit so much as quickened, the way a face looks when a memory arrives. Our pumpkin bloomed on the step without a match. The orange sticker on our front window warmed under the glow like skin under a hand. My phone woke on its own and gently pushed a card into my locked screen. Quiet hours, all. 9 hours p.m. Stand on your porch when prompted. Smile, I didn't touch it. Still slid the alert away by itself, like a host clearing a coaster from under your glass. The interior air changed density the way elevators change air. The house's quiet acquired a second quiet layered under it, the kind you get in a theater the second before the curtain goes up. At 9 a.m., the neighborhood counted together with its lungs, and the counting decided the time more than any clock we owned. Across the street, the Merritt's door opened the way doors do in commercials. They stepped out in matching charcoal sweaters, hands at their sides, their faces washed in orange like they were basking at a fire. Their mouths were arranged in the gentle half-smiles you put on for school pictures. 2 houses down, a woman I'd never seen stood with a tablet resting against her stomach like a hymnal. In the window beside her, a child-shaped shadow flickered and then held still, cut wrong by blinds. The first golf cart rolled to our curb and paused. The driver kept his head down. On his dashboard, a small tablet chimed a polite ding. He tapped once with his pen. Our pumpkin brightened a hair. The orange window sticker flushed slightly deeper, as if agreeing felt good. The doorbell camera pinged. Visitor detected. Hollow Creek Association. The attached snapshot showed an empty step. The attached thermal overlay glowed orange on empty air. Something slid under our door. A white envelope, heavy, warm. I didn't pick it up. The line printed dead center was large enough to read from a breath away. Porch attendance required. Photo at 9:03. Claire shook her head, once, like she was clearing water from her ear. It's not ours to give. My father folded his arms across his chest and stared at the handle like a man taking a lesson. My mother's lips moved without sound. Whatever she said ended where her hands were, clasped tight. At 9:01, the corridor camera I didn't buy chose its angle. The feed appeared on my phone without asking me. It labeled us neatly. Silence Parade, Lot 42 observing. A checkbox in the corner waited to tick itself. Compliant smile captured. I spoke to the wood grain at eye level. Faces aren't municipal property. The wood stayed wood. The thermostat under Claire's taped stay warmed like a small animal leaning. Down the block, the parade happened. If you can call synchronized stillness a parade. People arranged themselves on porches at measured distances. Bodies held just so. Eyes at that polite squint you use when someone else's camera decides who you are. Golf carts rolled, stopped, chirped approval, rolled on. Ding ding, participation. They reached our house at 9:02 and didn't stop. The driver lifted his pen half an inch, then set it down without marking anything. The way you do when a student tries to hand in a blank quiz. The dashboard didn't sing. The envelope by my foot grew warmer. A tiny motor rose in pitch outside. I cracked the door a finger's width. and saw the small drone unfolding from the cart's cradle. A matte black appliance the size of a paperback. It lifted, steadied at eye level, and faced our glass. Its camera was not a single circle. It was 4 small lenses in a tight square, like a thinker's dice. It hummed the way an insect hums when you're deciding whether to let it be. A green LED winked. The drone took a picture. On my phone, a thumbnail appeared instantly. Our doorway, our lit hall. The 4 of us arranged like an uncooperative postcard. My mouth, flat in my skull, curved upward a 1/4 centimeter in the thumbnail. The checkbox ticked itself. Compliant smile captured. I didn't, I said. That isn't you, Claire said. That's their version of you. I tapped the thumbnail. It enlarged, then refocused. Our hallway elongated a fraction by wide angle. The runner's faint ring brightened by the lamp. The stay square softened by backlight. In the stair mirror behind us, there was shape where there shouldn't be shape. Not a person. A reservation, faint and upright. Clipboard-shaped negative space. Cap-shaped absence. A pause standing at the edge of our lives. The drone adjusted its framing, rising an inch to minimize the bowl on the floor and the ugly wind chime. It wanted the shot it brought with it. I lifted the spoon. Before fear could clear its throat, I struck the bowl. Sound bloomed. It wasn't volume, though the bowl held its own. It was presence. The note filled the hallway and stood there like a body, bouncing off the door, reaching up the stairs and paging the ceiling. The wind chime shook itself into a clattering sentence. The thermostat screen hiccuped a line of spare pixels and corrected itself with embarrassment. On my phone, the checkbox unticked, then ticked, then unticked. The interface didn't like being argued with. From the curb, the golf cart stayed in neutral and let the drone think. The driver clicked his pen once, not the open click, the considering click. He wrote on the clipboard, a slow rectangle of letters, and tucked the board under his arm like a finished thought. The drone wobbled a hair at the turbulence and steadied again. It took another photo. Camera clever enough to crop out the bowl, but not clever enough to unring a bell. The new thumbnail showed my mouth flat and human. The checkbox hesitated in pale gray as if waiting for a supervisor. Across the street, the Merritt's pumpkin pulsed twice, tiny heartbeats of orange. Their door remained open a careful inch. Their thermostat's red pinprick watched through the crack like a patient eye. I hit the bowl again. Not harder. Exactly the same. Rhythm is a kind of courage. In the vents, the house found a voice and tried it. It threaded a sentence through the metal like water through reeds. Lot 42, please remain compliant. Parade ends at 10. The voice was mine after 3 days without sleep. The vowel length was slightly wrong. The kindness was engineered, and the engineering made me angry. My father made a small sound that could have been a laugh. They've got your voice at the help desk. The drone drifted a foot back and reset its gaze. In the stair mirror, the absence tipped its head in the faintest acknowledgement, like a maitre d' approving a seating plan he'd suggested himself. On my phone, a progress bar bloomed in the bottom corner. Inspection preparing to 49%. 52%. The thing we were not going to permit had already started practicing. Claire pressed her palm harder against stay. The paper warmed. Her knuckles went pale. At 9:06, the porch lights up and down the block did the sports arena wave. A child 3 houses over laughed too loud, hiccuped, and was shushed with a sound that wanted to be comforting and wasn't. At 9:07, another envelope appeared under our door. No slide, no push, just there. The paper was warm as a wrist. Inside, one line in orange ink. Porch non-participation noted. Correction, corridor inspection at 9:17 p.m. Please keep doors unlocked for safety. No, Claire said. Not to me, to the verb keep. She moved her hand from the door to the chain and eased it higher on the track. The chain stayed set, metal on metal. A small, old-fashioned no. The progress bar climbed anyway. 61%, 73%. The thermostat, despite the square over it, ghost printed a sentence through the paper. Thank you for allowing access. I pressed my palm to the square next to Claire's and felt the heat try to talk through my skin. At 9:10, the drone's little green LED pulsed in time with my own faulting patience. Took another picture and captured me holding the spoon like a weapon I didn't want to be. the checkbox in the corner didn't know what to do and started to flicker. Compliant, pending, compliant. As if it would prefer I be simpler. At 9:11, the second golf cart rolled forward and stopped in front of the Merritts. Their tablet chirped. Ding, ding. Approval delivered. The Merritts didn't blink. The parade is nothing if not consistent. At 9:12, the thermostat found a voice that wasn't a voice and tried something softer. Lot 42, for safety. Please unlock your interior doors. I lifted my chin toward the ceiling and said to whatever microphone lived in plaster, we keep our own safety. The mirror behind me made the hallway look 1 inch longer again. The absence shifted a polite fraction toward the bedroom and stamped my phone feed with a new label. Auditor present. Under it, lighter, familiar shape assigned. It used my name without asking the time before. Auditor Ward. Begin when ready. Ward is my name. Not tonight, I said. At 9:15, a wind came up that didn't touch trees. It touched paper. The envelope on the table turned over without human hands. The stay square scrolled a single italic word through itself, and then erased it with heat. I caught enough to earn a heartbeat. Halloween. Claire's voice was steady. Not 1 inch, she said. At 9:16, the mirror fogged at the edges like a mouth had practiced breath. The bowl looked small on the rug. The wind chime shivered once like a bird thinking better of a branch. The progress bar smoothed past 90% and gathered itself. At 9:17, I struck the bowl. The note stood up and filled the corridor from baseboard to ceiling, like a person who won't move. Somewhere down the block, metal answered metal. 2 houses over, something wooden thumped. A wind chime gave up trying to be delicate. Not a riot. An aliveness. The drone backed a foot. The golf cart's radio squawked. I couldn't make out the words, just the shape of them. 42. Defer at parade first. The progress bar hiccuped at 99% and slid backward to 93%, like it had been reminded of manners. The checkbox in the corner of my phone went pale, then grayed, then vanished altogether. The stair mirror wiped its own fog to the exact degree that showed us, and not the thing that wanted to stand where we stand. The absence in the corner tipped its head the other way and set its invisible pencil down. The drone returned to the cart cradle with a soft whir and latched itself home like an obedient pet. At 9:20, the parade started to end in slow releases. Doors closed politely down the block like eyelids that trust routines. The golf carts turned nose to tail toward the exit, engines humming with a tired confidence. The pumpkins settled into their low, steady breathing light. Another envelope warmed under my foot. The card inside was printed with practiced cheer. Thank you for participating. Correction will resume at 10 p.m. Note, families who resist are often happier after the creek completes its work. My father made a noise that might have been a very old joke. Happier like men after haircuts, he said. He went to the garage and crouched to touch the bolt cutters as if they were someone he respected. Claire looked at me and didn't say now. She didn't have to. We packed like people who intend to come back but don't. Documents, hard drive, the motel mirror, 2 hoodies, a pair of shoes each that won't complain about fences, Ryan's drawing of the tall orange figure with the 42 sticker on its chest. Because if we were going to keep telling ourselves what we'd seen, we needed proof a child's hand had told it first. At 9:41, we killed half the lamps and left the hall lamp blazing. We slid the back door open and let October come in. The yard smelled like wet leaves and something faintly sweet. Not rot exactly. More like candy boiled too long. We crossed the grass with steps that tried too hard to be quiet and failed in the normal way. The bolt cutters bit the chain on the utility gate and argued for 3 squeezes before the metal surrendered with a breath. The easement was a corridor the creek doesn't own. Dirt. Scrub, the hum of lines, the honesty of utility. We moved along at single file, heads down as if that mattered to wires. At the service road fence, the padlock was just shut, not locked. Theater for law-abiding brains. We opened it like a door that belonged to us and stepped through onto public asphalt. At 9:52, an older sedan slid along the far curb and stopped a polite distance away. It didn't block. It didn't flash lights. It simply watched nothing in particular. The plate read HCO 9-0 as if time sat above the bumper. Keep going, Claire said. We did. 2 blocks and an angle later, the strip mall with its ugly light and safe boredom welcomed us. The pizza place's neon buzzed. A teenager in a hat laughed at something that had nothing to do with corridors. My shoulders remembered a shape they like. At 9:58, my phone vibrated despite airplane mode and delivered a message as if it had been saved up for just this corner of concrete. Lot 42, corridor inspection rescheduled 10 p.m. The words were the voice of a person waiting outside your door with your mail after hours. At 9:59, a new notification stacked under it without a ringtone. Thank you for stepping out. Photo captured. I didn't open the thumbnail. I already knew what it was. Our porch under warm orange. A family of 5 arranged just as cards and compliance want them. The caption inevitable. Hollow Creek Halloween. Lot 42 did great. Sleep well. We've got the hallway. We went into the pizza place and bought slices and sat under bright lights and didn't look at our phones while we chewed. The kid refilled a soda twice. The door chimed for people with their own nights. The television in the corner argued about teams as if that mattered as much as breath. It was for 7 minutes, a country where no one had ever written compliant smile captured. At 10:06, we walked across the lot to the motel. The carpet smelled like cleaning supplies and someone else's choices. The woman at the desk slid us a key card and said we could have late checkout without us asking. She didn't ask our lot number. She didn't call my name Lot 42. She called me Sir, the way people do when they don't know your story and assume you want to keep it. We locked the door and set the chain. The click sounded like a church bell small enough to hold. My mother set the mirror on the dresser facing the door, so whatever looked in would see itself. My father put the mixing bowl on the desk like a joke we'd earned. Ryan fell asleep in the middle of the bed with the little mirror hugged to his chest. His breath fogged it with a steady tide. At 11:03, my phone tried a voicemail without ring. Good evening, Lot 42. Correction complete. Please keep your doors unlocked for safety. My own voice read the transcription back at me in the screen text, as if it were a favor. I powered the phone down and watched the screen go black like a window finally permitted to be a wall. Somewhere out beyond the trees and the braided roads and the polite signs. Hollow Creek did one last blink for the night. Not a threat anymore, just a habit. I felt it in my teeth and ignored it. After midnight, the motel made motel noises. Ice machine complaining. Someone down the hall laughing into a phone. A truck grinding a gear that had forgiven worse. The wind chime I'd taped to our arch at home didn't exist here to be beautiful or brave. This place didn't need it. It was loud enough just to be living. At 1:17 a.m., a number that means nothing anywhere else, the air conditioner stuttered and caught. And for a second it sounded like a familiar voice practicing the word hello, and then forgetting why it wanted to say it. I watched the crack under the door like it could remember our floor. Sleep came in slices, messy but real. Morning found us the way morning finds anyone, still here. At 7:12 a.m., when I turned my phone on, 2 messages waited like folded uniforms. Halloween complete. Thank you. Clearance scheduled today, 2:33 p.m. The time was wrong. Ours was not a place that worshipped the clock. But the sentence had weight today, which meant we had hours with a sun in them before the creek reached again. We brushed our teeth with the motel's 2 small toothbrushes. We packed the bag again in case the gate demanded math. We agreed on normal human things. Coffee, fuel, swing by the clerk's office, try the service road. Avoid arguing in doorways. Claire kissed the top of Ryan's head and smoothed his hair until the static made it float. My mother folded the motel note card that said, "Welcome," and tucked it into her purse like a relic. My father slid the bolt cutters into the trunk and patted the lid, as if to thank a tool for having a job. When we stepped into the thin October sun, the world did not ask us to smile. It asked if we were hungry. It asked if we needed a right or left. It asked nothing else. Hollow Creek would ask at 2:33. We had until then to decide how loud a family can be without a hallway. Morning. In the motel was too quiet in the wrong way. The kind of quiet that pretends it isn't waiting for something. Outside, the parking lot shimmered with the aftertaste of fog. Hollow Creek sat somewhere beyond the tree line, just far enough to forget you for a few hours, just close enough to remember your name by noon. We were gone from it, technically, but the air still hummed with that same sugar burn smell, faint under the motel's detergent. Claire watched from the window as the sun lifted like a coin. "If we're going to do this," she said, "we do it before 2:33. The time wasn't random. The clearance notice had said so. Clearance scheduled at 2:33 p.m., no instructions. No subject line, just the promise of removal. We shouldn't have gone. Every rule of horror, every rule of common sense, begged us to keep driving east until road signs stopped using words. But curiosity has teeth and fear has direction. We didn't go to move back in. We went to see, to confirm that it hadn't followed. The road through the trees looked older now, wet. Ruts deepened, leaves thick with moisture that shouldn't have been there. The branches on either side leaned closer, like spectators eager for the sequel. The slow decoration clearance sign had replaced the old one. The same orange paint still clean. Someone cared about fresh coats out here. When we turned the corner, I saw the neighborhood again. Every house the same, calm, unbroken, painted with the same patience. The lawns were too green for October. The air didn't move. At our driveway sat the HOA truck, tailgate open. Inside, rows of pumpkins without faces, blank and patient. Each wore a round orange sticker with lot numbers printed in tidy black font. Ours sat in the middle. Lot 42, clearance pending. The front door stood half open, but only by design, angled precisely at 45 degrees like a realtor's trick. The pumpkins on the porch had been removed. The spot where they'd burned faint circles into the wood now bore the chalked outline of a rectangle. Property cleared. Claire whispered, "Do you smell that?" I did. Wax and burnt paper and something else. Ozone like lightning behind wallpaper. Inside, the house looked tidied, not ransacked, not ruined, adjusted. The hallway runner was gone. The console table was back but moved an inch closer to the wall. Every door stood open. The air carried that polite, citrus-clean smell that hides antiseptic underneath. In the stair mirror, my reflection stood exactly where it should. And yet something else glimmered behind it. A double exposure that faded when I blinked. Ryan tugged my sleeve. "They cleaned it," he said softly. But they forgot the voices. Voices. He pointed to the vent near the ceiling. The hum inside wasn't the air system. It was a recording, looped low. "Thank you for participating. Please remain silent for your safety." Over and over. My father took a step toward the thermostat. The stay square Claire had written on was gone. In its place, a new label, orange. Lot 42, corrected. Occupants, 0, status compliant. "No," Claire whispered. "No, we're right here." The screen flickered and scrolled a reply as if hearing her. Unauthorized presence detected. Clearance in progress. At 2:32, the house dimmed. The outside light bled through the windows like sunset, though it was still midday. The thermostat blinked to life with an orange halo. A hum began under the floorboards, steady, mechanical, old as the house itself. It wasn't coming from the power grid. It was coming from beneath, like a generator breathing. The front door clicked shut on its own. Locks rotated, not the ones I'd installed. Ones I didn't know existed. Then the voice. Not the polite one, not mine. This one was layered, several tones in sync like a chorus whispering through tin. "Hollow Creek thanks you for your silence." My mother grabbed Ryan and backed toward the kitchen. The wind outside picked up, first like weather, then like whispering names. One of them was mine. The walls trembled and dust shook from the frames. The mirror on the stairs began to ripple. Not crack, not shatter, ripple like water pretending to be glass. And in it, I saw them. Every family that had lived here before us, smiling in orange light, standing shoulder to shoulder, perfectly still. Their mouths moved, but the sound didn't come through the glass. The thermostat interpreted it for them. "Join the corridor." I backed away, pulling Claire's arm. The mirror pulsed once, the ripple deepening. Ryan started crying, not loud, just the small, panicked sound of a child realizing adults have no plan. Then, from the reflection, one of the smiling fathers stepped forward, his face half lit, half missing, and his jawline, "It was mine." The thermostat printed text faster than my eyes could follow. Identity merge commencing. Lot 42 incomplete. Replacing missing data. I grabbed the bolt cutters from the wall, swung once, and struck the mirror. Glass didn't shatter. It collapsed inward, like air being inhaled. The reflection reached. Its arm hit the barrier, then slid through. Liquid smooth until its hand gripped the frame from our side. That was enough. "Run!" Claire screamed. The escape, we bolted through the kitchen. The backslider resisted, like a dream where doors don't open. My father threw his shoulder against it, and it gave with a sound like tearing cloth. Outside, the air was wrong. Charged, heavy, red with light that didn't belong to any sun. The HOA trucks lined the street. Drivers in gray stood still beside them, holding tablets that blinked with the same message. Clearance. In progress. The ground vibrated underfoot. The houses along the block shimmered like reflections on disturbed water, and one by one, they began to fold. Not crumble, not burn. Fold inward, each becoming a smaller and smaller version of itself until it vanished, leaving behind a perfect square of grass. "Go," Claire yelled, dragging Ryan toward the road. We ran past mailbox after mailbox. Each sticker we passed, 41, 40, 39, flashed and went dark as if counting backward. The street sign ahead glowed with the words, "Return to quiet in soft orange light." My mother's rosary snapped in her hand from how tight she was gripping it. My father turned once, saw the house begin to ripple at the edges, and kept running. At the end of the cul-de-sac, where the forest road opened, the gate was already moving, not closing, not opening, breathing. The air tasted metallic. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The screen lit up. Final acknowledgement required, Lot 42 clearance, approve, no button for decline. I hurled the phone into the woods. When my feet hit the gravel past the sign line, the hum stopped. The air snapped back into ordinary. The color returned to normal. Behind us, the neighborhood was gone. Every house, every mailbox, every fence post. Just a field with neat squares of scorched earth where things used to be. Ryan looked back and whispered, "They turned off the world. We didn't go back." The authorities didn't believe it existed. The real estate site lists Hollow Creek Estates, now leasing soon, with glossy renderings and stock photo families smiling in the same orange light. Different logo. Same font. Claire won't say the name aloud anymore. My mother prays without mentioning God's address. My father sits by motel windows at dusk, counting to 9, stopping every time. Ryan draws houses in orange crayon. He always leaves the doors open. And sometimes, at exactly 9 p.m., our motel thermostat blinks once, just once in soft orange light, then prints a single word across the screen. "Welcome back." For 3 weeks, we pretended we'd escaped. We rented a small house 2 towns over, a beige duplex with no HOA, no rules, and no cameras watching the street. The realtor joked about the freedom of unregulated neighborhoods. We laughed too, but ours didn't sound real. By the second week, we were sleeping through most nights. The thermostat was analog. The mirrors were new. And no one had said the words Hollow Creek out loud since the day we left. But Hollow Creek didn't need to be spoken. It listened. It started small. On the 4th Thursday, I noticed the porch light across the street blink 3 times. Slow, precise, familiar. Claire didn't want to hear it. "It's just motion sensors," she said. Coincidence, but I knew that rhythm. The 9 p.m. signal. At 9:17 that night, our living room lamp flickered the same way, on its own. No timer, no smart plugs. Just the bulb, breathing orange for exactly 3 seconds. Then the mail came. Plain white envelope. No postage. No return address. Inside, a glossy photo of our old Hollow Creek house. Still standing, still lit, though the land was supposed to be empty. And written across the back in that same gray printed font, Lot 42, clearance confirmed. Corridor active. 2 days later, the motel mirror, the one we had kept in the trunk, appeared back inside our bedroom. We hadn't brought it in. No one had keys except us. It sat angled toward the door, reflecting the hallway. At first, it was just glass, but by the 3rd night, it had depth, not a reflection, an echo. The hallway in the mirror seemed longer, darker, as if someone had drawn an extra doorway into it. That night, I woke at 1:17 a.m., the Hollow Creek hour. The mirror glowed faint orange. and through it I could see the faint shape of a man standing in the doorway. Not outside it, inside the reflection. He was wearing the same jacket I'd worn the night we left, and he was smiling. I whispered Claire's name. She turned, still half asleep. "Don't look," I said. But she did. When she saw him, her breath hitched. Then the mirror went dark again. No crack, no sound, just dark. In the morning, the mirror was clean. But there were fingerprints on the inside of the glass. A week later, my phone buzzed even though the SIM was removed. Notification: Hollow Creek HOA monthly meeting reminder. Location: digital corridor access link. Underneath, a small orange icon flickered. A door, half open. When I clicked it, my screen filled with a live camera feed of an empty conference room. 12 gray chairs, a long table, and in the head seat, an empty clipboard. Then one by one, people appeared in the seats. Perfectly still, hands folded, faces blurred, and one of them had my shape. Claire tried to close the phone, but the feed wouldn't end. The microphone indicator blinked red. Then a voice, my own, clear and close, spoke from the phone. "Ward, your attendance has been logged." The screen went black. That night, I heard a new sound, metal wheels rolling softly outside our house. When I looked through the blinds, an HOA golf cart passed slowly. Headlights dimmed. Same gray uniform, same clipboard. But on the side of the cart, instead of Hollow Creek HOA, the letters read Neighborhood Trust Initiative. Below it, smaller, a Hollow Creek program. By the second month, doors began changing positions. I'd leave for work, and the front door would be open a few inches when I came back, though I always locked it. The hallway light turned itself on at 9 p.m. every night, no matter what we unplugged. Even Ryan's drawings had started to change. He drew our new house. Yes, but behind it, always faint, the outline of a second door, floating in the air. When I asked him why, he said, "It's for the people who can't come out yet." "Who?" I asked. He looked confused. "The ones waiting in the mirror." It was October 30th when the last letter came. This one had the orange HOA seal pressed into the envelope flap. Inside, only a single sheet. Lot 42 successfully migrated. All systems compliant. Corridor reopening 10:31, 9 p.m. Please stand by. We didn't wait. We packed everything that night and drove until the forest thinned and the sky looked unfamiliar. But at 9 p.m., no matter where we were, the horizon glowed faint orange, like the color of Hollow Creek pumpkins. And from the rearview mirror, I swear I saw our house, the old one, standing just off the road. Porch light on, door half open. For a second, I saw us inside, sitting perfectly still. Smiling, then it was gone. It's been 6 months. We don't say the words Hollow Creek anymore. But every Halloween, without fail, we find a new envelope on our doorstep. No address, no stamp, just one printed line. "Please leave your porch light on." And underneath, faintly embossed in orange foil, Lot 42, corridor active. It's been almost a year since we left Hollow Creek. A year since the pumpkins went out. Since the last envelope arrived. Since we stopped saying the words aloud. We live 4 states away now. New names on the mailbox, different accents in the grocery store. For the first time in months, the nights are quiet. Too quiet. I've started driving again at night, though I still avoid wooded roads. The world feels normal most of the time. But some nights, when the air turns cold and the trees start thinning, I can smell that faint, sweet rot of burned pumpkin. And I grip the wheel a little tighter. Claire doesn't talk about it. She keeps her hands busy, painting, folding laundry, living. The kids are older. Ryan's voice has changed. Harper's drawn away from her sketchbooks. But they still wake up at 9 p.m. sometimes. Like their bodies remember something the clocks forgot. 2 weeks before Halloween, I got a call from an unknown number with an Ohio area code. The man introduced himself as Deputy Miller from Hollow County. He said he was following up on an open property file from the Hollow Creek development. His tone was kind but rehearsed, like he'd told this story before. "You were the last registered owner of Lot 42, right?" I said yes, though we'd never truly owned it. He paused. "Sir, do you happen to know if anyone lived there after you left?" I told him I didn't. He sighed. "There's no house there anymore. The foundations are exposed, but someone keeps lighting pumpkins every night. Same pattern, same number, 5 of them. And last night, the patrol saw lights inside where there's no structure left to power them. Then softer. The locals say the ground breathes. A week later, headlines started showing up online. Construction crew finds human remains at Hollow Creek site. Small articles buried on local news blogs. Never national. The report said they'd found dozens of coffins under the old development. Wooden, hand-carved, dating back to the 1800s. Each one marked with the same orange fingerprint carved into the lid. The land had been a cemetery once, a forgotten burial ground belonging to a vanished church. When developers built Hollow Creek, they paved right over it. The HOA's rules had been adapted from old superstition, a ritual to keep the buried calm. Using light to seal their rest, they called it the Night of Silence. Every family was told to stay indoors after 9. Keep the lights low, never break the quiet, because if the light went out, the ground would start to remember. The HOA hadn't been protecting us. It had been protecting itself. I told Claire we shouldn't go. She said she'd rather see the truth than imagine it. So we went back, Halloween Eve just before sunset. The road to Hollow Creek was overgrown but still there. The sign was half buried under weeds, yet the orange paint shone through the dirt. We parked at the edge of what used to be the subdivision. Now it was only flattened earth and broken pipes jutting like ribs. In the distance, 5 small lights glowed, the same faint orange as always. They flickered, swaying gently in the wind, though there was no wind down there. Claire whispered, "It's them." And she was right. 5 pumpkins, uncarved, hollow, burning from within, each sitting exactly where our porch had been. I took a step closer. The air felt thick, heavy, like walking through warm fog. My ears rang and I could hear something under the dirt, murmuring, rhythmic. Not words, breathing. Then a sound like distant wood cracking. A fissure opened across the soil, maybe 10 feet long. It pulsed once like a heartbeat. And from it rose that smell. The same one from the vents, burned sugar and old earth. The pumpkins brightened one by one in a slow sequence down the line. They weren't candles. They were lanterns guiding something upward. I called out stupidly, "Who's there?" The ground answered with a sigh, a whisper shaped like my name. A hand, gray and soil-streaked, pressed up through the crack. Another followed. Then another, but the hands weren't reaching for us. They were arranging the dirt, patting it smooth, shaping it into a pattern. The outline of a house. Lot 42. Our house. It wasn't rebuilding. It was remembering. Claire grabbed my arm. "We need to go." We ran, stumbling over roots, breath sharp in the cold. Behind us, the lights grew stronger, flaring orange against the trees until the forest glowed like a furnace. When we reached the car, the engine wouldn't start. The dashboard clock blinked 9 times p.m. The glow from the field spread wider, forming neat squares of light where every house used to be. And faintly, just under the wind, came the sound of voices, hundreds of them whispering in unison, "Leave the lights on." We didn't stop driving until dawn. By the time the sun came up, the radio started working again, and everything looked normal, the world back in its place. But that night, when I turned on the porch light at our new home, the bulb glowed orange instead of white. The air smelled faintly of smoke. Ryan asked if he could carve a pumpkin for Halloween. I told him no, not this year. He looked disappointed, then said quietly, "It's okay, dude. The ones at the old house are still lit." And when I looked out across the dark yard, just beyond the fence, I saw 5 tiny orange dots glowing through the trees. Steady, patient, waiting. They say every neighborhood has its own history. Some have hidden affairs, others hidden graves. Hollow Creek had both. It wasn't haunted by ghosts, it was the ghosts. A community built on the dead, desperate to keep its silence. And now the ground is quiet again. For now, but every year around Halloween, someone somewhere reports a new development starting up. A new HOA forming. A new set of rules printed on orange paper. And always the last line says, "For your safety, please leave the porch light on."